Welcome to the April meeting of the Democratic Services Committee. We have a number of people online and a number of people in the chamber, and pleased to welcome Malcolm Lane, who's deputising for Louise Brown today, as I understand things, and also to Angela, Cabinet Member, joining us for the afternoon. So welcome everybody. Croeso. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence, and we've received some from Councillor Howells, who may join us depending on his travel arrangements. And are there any others, John? No others, right? We'll move on then to item 2 if there's no other apologies from anyone else. Nobody with hands up. We'll move on then to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest in any items to be discussed this afternoon? No? Right. We're going through this too quickly now. We'll have to slow down a bit. Item 3 is to approve the minutes of the meetings held on the 13th of January and the 10th of March. Is it your wish that they be signed as a true and accurate record of both those meetings, please? Moved to have them passed. Any dissension? Everybody happy? Right, okay, thank you. Right, we'll move on then to...
Sorry, Chair. May I just say something?
Of course you can, Rachel. We're on first name.
I did have my hand up.
Sorry,
I'm just butting in on you.
I thought it was a wasp in the corner.
Oh, John, I wonder if the minutes for the 10th of March could have the links to the audio. I thought that was so brilliant. It really helps, I think, if people are looking at, the minutes of the meeting to sort of be able to click onto the moment where it's being discussed. And I just thought, I think it should be done on all meetings. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, my apologies. I can go and add that in. I think as it was a single item agenda, but I agree having a link to the live stream still in the minute so they can go and find that directly should have been in there. So I'll go and amend that one afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to item 4, which is the improvements to consultations. Now then, I can't totally recollect how many of us were in the session on Let's Talk Monmouthshire on Friday. Before we go on to that bit, pleased to welcome Paul this afternoon, who's joining us. He's missed the consultation at Monmouthshire. And Paul, would you like to take matters forward, or...
By all means, thank you, Chair. So I appreciate the member seminar we had on Friday perhaps supersedes some of the conversations we're going to have this afternoon. But just wanted to, again, welcome the opportunity to talk through Let's Talk Monmouthshire, what the platform is, what we want it to be in the future, and how we collectively can take this platform forward to engage our communities and ensure that their voices are listened to. So a lot more of the detail presentations were shared with members on Friday from the seminar, and we've got some additional actions that we're following up on to pull all that information together for you. But I'm here again this afternoon to welcome any questions and happy to kind of be led by any areas that you want to delve into deeper.
Thank you, Paul. Right, we'll throw the meeting over to the floor then. And do we have any contributions, hopefully in addition to Friday, as opposed to repeating everything that happened on Friday, to help us consult with residents and to get back to them what they need to know? No hands up. Right, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I wasn't able to attend the seminar on Friday, and I wonder if you could just give us a snapshot. I've still got, I haven't had a chance to sort of listen and watch it through, of things that you felt were very useful that came up in the seminar that can be added to the sort of programme. So I just think it would be very helpful for us to know, what you felt could be enhanced.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I think just as a starting point, as you weren't able to join us, Councillor Butler, if I just go over some of the kind of key points that were covered within the presentation, just to kind of provide that summary. So Let's Talk Monmouthshire launched in the middle of January, based on resident feedback that we've had around not having a single place to know where consultations are hosted by our organisation. So Let's Talk Monmouthshire is, on the face of it, a digital platform, www.letstalkmonmouthshire.co.uk, and is the platform for all of our consultations to be hosted. But I suppose an important point that I landed on Friday, and to re-emphasise today, it goes much wider than that. So we want Let's Talk Monmouthshire to be the vehicle and the platform to how we facilitate those face-to-face conversations as well. A good example over the weekend in Abergavenny, the placemaking consultations with the public drop-in sessions that took place Friday and Saturday. The branding is still very present in terms of the Let's Talk brand, but they are face-to-face conversations, which I think is important because not everything, especially in the world that we currently live in, should be digital. I think in terms of the platform, there's a number of different tools and mechanisms that we've got. So there's your standard surveys, the ability to drop pins on maps for residents to leave feedback, an ideas board for residents to share how they want this platform to develop moving forward. At the moment, since we launched in January, we've had just shy of 14,000 visits to the site. Our registrations are currently at 562, and I think that registrations point is really important because collectively we want members, officers to be able to share the desire for residents to sign up. If residents sign up to that platform, we can share newsletters, we can share updates, and I think importantly we can close the loop on consultations as well. Some of the feedback we've had has been, as a resident, I've taken part in a consultation and then I don't know the end outcome. Through this platform, we're then able to close that loop. Even if it's as simple as saying once a consultation is closed, this will be considered at a full council meeting on the 5th of August, for instance. So I think it's important that if residents have taken that time to speak to us, that we recognise that and we ensure that they're aware of where that next point of contact in that decision-making process is. Just over 4,600 contributions have been made through that page over a 2-month period. I think when you're comparing that across some comparative data we've got across other local authorities performing very strong in the first 2-month period, and shows the desire of our communities to want to engage with us. And I think this platform, as we move forward, the more registrations we can get, the more functionality we can build on it, but more importantly, the more consistency we can gather from it. And I think if I just leave you one example, I spoke to a resident on the weekend who attended the drop-in session in Abergavenny, went away with a paper copy and was going to complete the paper copy, but thought, oh, I wonder if this is on Let's Talk Monmouthshire, and actually found it on there and completed it. And this resident is from a generation where perhaps digital technology is not as important as perhaps some of the younger generations we see now, and it was encouraging from my perspective to see how that connection had been made from the face-to-face conversation all the way through to the digital.
Thank you. If I just make a comment, I'm really encouraged to see the engagement. That's really good. I do know from the community councils I'm involved with, that I go to regularly, that there is this feeling of you report something like a pothole or whatever, and you feel and they feel left in limbo, and that there's no resolution, that, as you say, for consultations. So it's really, really good that there seems to be already a good engagement, and I think it's thoroughly encouraging. So thank you very much for giving me a wider picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckler. Councillor Sandals?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. In response to Rachel's question then about key points, I think one of the things that was I tried to sort of communicate to everybody was how each one of us as elected members have got a huge responsibility to actually share this with our residents. John Crook and I and some others were out on Saturday morning, as we all do as elected members, delivering leaflets. And it was a beautiful morning. There were people out gardening. I stopped and chatted to people, all of whom were over 70. And on the leaflet, I put a QR code to Let's Talk Monmouthshire and to upcoming events like the Armed Forces Day. And I said, oh, did you know this was happening in the area? Ooh, no, I didn't. Do you know how to use a QR code? And out of the 5 gentlemen that I spoke to, 3 of them said, yeah, I'm fine with that. And the other thing that I mentioned to people on the seminar on Friday was that I've got a QR code as a photograph on my phone where I managed to get 2 teenagers, okay? I would like a clap for that. 2 teenagers to sign up, sort of 17 and 19 on Friday, just by saying, right, do us a favour, please, just do it for me. Scan it and register and whatever. And if each one of it, they did it, they must have been in a very good mood because normally, they don't interact, do they? But I'd encourage everybody, just keep it on your phone as a photograph, get other people to scan it and get them to join. And what's really fantastic to hear is what Paul said. There is another neighbouring authority that has taken, is it 2 years to get to where we are? That's taken 2 years to get to the number of sign-ups that our officers have got in 2 months. So I think that's something to really be applauded. So thanks, Chair.
Right. Thank you, Angela. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, okay, thanks. In many ways, I don't disagree. I was at the seminar on Friday, and that was very useful. And I actually went to the placemaking consultation on Saturday morning. I popped in there, and that was very, very good. And I think we've got to have a combination. Yes, online, which I don't disagree with, and I wouldn't say I'm the best IT person, but I can manage a reasonable number of things. But so many people in my ward, and I'm sure this must apply across the county, particularly at the older age group. If you said to them a QR code, they wouldn't probably be terribly, familiar with it. And lots of people don't have that sort of tech. Some people on my ward haven't got a mobile phone. They haven't got access to a laptop or an iPad, and they then have to rely on the one-stop shop. So my own feeling is, yes, this is a great development. I'm really grateful to what Councillor Sanders has done and what has been done by the authority and by Paul Sullivan and his team. But I think, we've got to go sort of fairly broad. And I personally, I don't think there's anything quite like a face-to-face engagement, which we had on Friday and Saturday. And, I've got to say, I was amazed at the number of people who were in there, who came in on Saturday morning and were obviously engaged with the placemaking team. And I'm sure that there was a huge amount of information exchanged there in the dialogues that were going on. But so I think, yes, great, now we've got this Let's Talk, but I think it's going to take a little bit longer. And yes, I will try to get people to sign up, but I do think for the older sort of age group, I do think it's going to be slightly more challenging. Thanks, diolch.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Anybody else? Councillor Strong.
Yeah, thank you. I think it all ties in, doesn't it, with a general problem of comms, communication, and it's a bit of an irony, really, that as communications become easier for individuals, it's become harder for organisations. I mean, there was a day and age when every household virtually in the county would have taken a local newspaper. You could have put an advert in there, and you'd have got probably 80% or more contact. That's gone. And even with digital, there's so many different platforms that people might or might not use, that it's very difficult to get to everyone, let alone everybody, sort of 80% of that sort of that sort of level. I know there are various principles that we follow. I think it's the Gunning principles in England, and one of the slides on Friday were the principles for Wales. The the Older Persons Commissioner just released a report on engaging with older people, which includes various useful hints there, but none of them are rocket science and none of them overcome the essential problems. It's a matter of, I suppose, common sense and trying all sorts of different things. A couple of points that sort of occurred to me when we were doing the budget consultation. I know there was a bit of criticism that cabinet members weren't in places where people were dropping in. I mean, I'm sure that would have been due to pressure of time and so on. I was a bit unsure what the role of local councillors was on that. We had a drop-in session at Caldecott Library. I went along, and a couple of officers were there from the comms team. I assume they were from the comms team. And I didn't know, should I sit with them and join in, or what? In the end, I sort of sat a bit of a distance away and sort of earwigged what was going on without particularly intervening. Which raises the question. I mean, it's a bit difficult. Saying local councillors should do this. Of course, being on the administration side, naturally I would want to defend the budget. Other councillors might want to do differently, so I don't quite know how that would work. But what did occur to me, though, is we were in the library and, you know, a few people came by and a few people talked. Not 20 yards away, you had the Asda supermarket. Other supermarkets are available, where there were hundreds of people went in there. Perhaps we should have set up there, because I think most of the people who came in to the library didn't come in to speak to the budget thing. They just came in for their normal library uses. So perhaps there's a bit more of going where the people are, rather than expecting them to come to us. But above all, is try lots of different things and check what works. I think we're past the age where we can say, "Oh, this is going to work. This isn't going to work." Yeah, I think the key, the thing that Rachel raised about feedback is crucial. Often that feedback might be to say, well, no, you can't have that. You can't have lower council tax and better services. But we need to communicate that to people. We've not always been good at that. I think there's a role that schools have in this. Way back, sorry if I'm talking too long, but quite a while ago when I was on the Children and Young Persons Committee, before I was a councillor, there was I think it was a BBC Wales half-hour television documentary, which was about Monmouthshire County Council and about the bin lorries and all sorts of work they did, the sorting of the roads and so on. And I suggested that they get a DVD for every school and show it to the Welsh back classes, for example, because when I was teaching Welsh back, I was alarmed to think that, or to find out that most of the kids thought the council tax went straight into councillors' pockets. They had no idea really what it was spent on, and I think generally the population does need to know more than perhaps it does about this. But you know, the schools is one place to start on that, making sure they do know what role local government plays in their lives, because it's a huge role. And I know Councillor Sandals has been into our local school to talk about that, and that's been quite fruitful, I think. So it doesn't really take us too far, but just some thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Strong. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Pete, you've covered a lot of what I was going to say, so thank you, far more eloquently than I would have, no doubt. I just wondering, I suppose, what we can do or are doing to support people to sign up to and access the Let's Talk Monmouthshire, to sign up to a Let's Talk Monmouthshire account. I think what Councillor Sandals was saying is really important, you know, going around speaking to people, because we naturally, all of us, meet people in community settings when we go out, engaging with our residents, or sometimes if you're just going through town or what have you. Having it on phone is, I think, is a great idea, to be able to flash the QR code at someone, by the way. But where people may struggle a little bit with the technology, is there anything that we're doing or could do, say in our hubs where people could drop in and get some assistance to sign up for an account? Do we do anything like that yet?
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Yes, absolutely. So by the nature of everything that we're doing here, I'm very aware that this cannot be a project just driven by the central communications team, because there just simply isn't the resource available to reach the levels of impact that we want. So community hubs are fully engaged and fully briefed in terms of going through that sign-up process. So if any residents are struggling with the sign-up, and we're only capturing very limited information because we only want to hold information that is really useful to us at that point to sign up, then residents can, of course, go into their community hubs and the team be more than happy to help and answer any wider questions on that.
Fabulous, thank you. And I suppose, can I just add a quick comment, if you don't mind? I know we do, understandably to an extent, get some criticism around kind of numbers of people who've completed the consultation, which groups those people have come from, you know, are younger people underrepresented, and so on. And I suppose I wanted to emphasise that we all have a personal responsibility to get people to engage. I think there's a lot of feeling that the council, in quite an abstract sense, is responsible for getting people to come and do the consultations. Whereas, sorry, big dog. Where was I? Yeah, we're all responsible for helping people to come and do it. And, you know, for example, like I am with the placemaking plans in Abergavenny. I'm sorry I couldn't come at the weekend. I'm at the tail end of a pretty rotten cold. But tomorrow I'm going to go to Tudor Street and do a drop-in session for people there who want some support to access Let's Talk Monmouthshire or the Abergavenny's placemaking plans. And we all need to find ways to actively engage with groups who maybe are not accessing the consultations at the rate that we might like them to be able to at the moment. I think Pete's point, Councillor Strong's point about how we engage with schools and getting people to understand kind of the civic process around what the council does and how they can feed into it is super important. I suppose my personal frustration is that I hear a lot of negativity around consultations and not a lot of, well, this is what I, as an elected member, can personally do to improve it. And I really think we all have a duty to engage with that a bit more. And I would like to see a bit more of a positive attitude, I suppose. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sandals, did you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you, if you don't mind. Yeah, pertaining to Laura's statements there, one of the ways, like Paul said, obviously we can't do much as a comms team. However, you can walk in, you can ask any of our residents to walk into any of our hubs, and there are laptops to loan. There are also people who will support them with setting it up. So I know that doesn't answer the perennial question of, you know, how do we get other people? We've not got the newspapers anymore, but the laptops and devices are fantastic. They can go in, and there are organisations, not just our staff in the hubs, there are organisations they can link to as well. On another matter, with Pete Strong said about going into schools, so Councillor Jackie Strong and I went in because the English department contacted us and said, you know, could you come in and speak to our school council and just tell them a little about how a council runs. So this was in no way political at all. We contacted the fantastic John Pearson, okay, who's been brilliant, who linked us to lots of information he's already got on democracy and how a council runs. Some great hands-on activities with sheets that we could give out. There was a quiz that Pete Strong helped us with as well. So, you know, if anybody's interested in doing anything like that in their local schools, it was lovely. We've been invited back and they want to make it a regular thing. It was in no way party political. It was just because, I mean, I've got a teaching background, Jackie's got a social work background, and between the pair of us, we covered the bases. The Mayor is going to come in with us next time. We can all do things like that in our own communities. And again, that's another way that, you know, that we can engage. So I hope that helps as well. Thanks, Chair.
Excellent, thank you. Paul?
Yeah, thank you. And I suppose just some reassurance for members in terms of sign-ups that we're seeing. So the 3 age categories that have currently got the highest levels of sign-up are age 50 to 59, 60 to 69, and 70 to 79. So I think sometimes it's easy for us naturally, and I do it myself, to kind of lean towards perhaps the older generation might not be wanting to engage digitally in this format. But the data we're seeing at the moment is very strong. I think that proves the other challenge we've got around engaging with our younger generations and making sure that they see this platform as we develop and as we evolve, that they see this platform as their opportunity to shape the community that they live in. Our current RLD plans around 50% affordable housing is to look at keeping our young people within Monmouthshire. So what better way to encourage that by helping those young people shape the communities and the environment that they grow up in as well. Coming back to Councillor Strong's point earlier around the national principles of engagement in Wales that we're looking to embed through some of this work, I think the exact point was made around that communication planning and giving ourselves across services enough time to know that we are going out to consult on this date and where do we need to be working back from that point. I'm not sat here saying we've got everything perfect, far from it. I'm saying this is a journey that we're on, and some of the mechanisms that we're putting in place around the communication strategic grid and some of the planning that we're embedding across teams is helping us be more planned, more proactive as opposed to reactive in some of this space. And I think in terms of the elected member and town and community council support that we can tap into, we're working democratic services around hosting a single place for repositories of information. So you've got a standard set of information that's been designed through services, through the communications team, that's branded with the same branding that we want front-facing to our residents for consistency, but you're able to tap into that very easily. And I think that town community council and elected member relationship is really important to make sure that we achieve the goals that we want to.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Keir, your hand was up. So.
It is. Thanks very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
And yeah, thanks very much, everybody. I think just listening to the conversation now, there seem to be a lot of really good best practices that I think I've been writing down lots of things here that councillors have been doing on their own patches, etc. I think just going back to Councillor Thomas's point about just expanding, it is about effective consultations is giving it the best opportunity to reach the most people, whether that is on a paper place, on a notice board, various local publications, social media, face-to-face, all those things that are good practices that we can ensure that information is got out to our residents. I am a big fan of this Let's Talk Monmouthshire. Talking a little bit earlier about branding and also about Paul, you mentioned the age bracket where you're successful and the younger elements are perhaps not signing up to it. And if my feedback on the branding of Let's Talk Monmouthshire is it doesn't do a lot for me. It doesn't really tell me. It's a you know, it's just constructive feedback. It's a bland colour. It doesn't really talk about consultations. Let's Talk Monmouthshire, your community, your voice. It doesn't actually tell me what it is. Really, it doesn't want to make me want to press and click. And I just wondered whether that's just constructive feedback, and whether or not that we could perhaps look to make it a bit more. I don't know, brighter, making you want to click and access it rather than just, to me at the moment, it makes me just want to scroll on by. Sudden silence.
Thank you, Councillor Keir. Sorry, just loading something in the background. Yeah, I think from a branding perspective, if you go on www.letstalkmonmouthshire.co.uk, the current banner and the current branding that we've got is green. So that branding will be changing on a quarterly basis based on kind of a seasonal message. So with a view to trying to refresh it. I suppose the challenge we've got from a branding perspective, personally, I like the brand. I think it tries to encapsulate Monmouthshire within its identity. And I think the Let's Talk element is effectively that summary of what we're trying to achieve through this platform. So the website is that voice in, but I think notwithstanding and re-emphasise through conversations this afternoon that those face-to-face conversations are really important, and they have to be really important to the work that we're doing here. I suppose when you're looking at something as wide as a single platform for the whole organisation, for consultation engagement and that voice in for residents, to summarise that in a single brand is very challenging. As a team, as an individual officer, I'm very open to feedback. So if there is anything more specific that you were thinking, Councillor Keir, and you want to send some details across, this is a brand that's going to develop and it's going to evolve over time. I'd be more than happy to have a look at that with the team. But as I said, the officer designed the work and designs a lot of the work. I think does some fantastic work for the organisation. Personally, as I said, I do like it, but I'd be happy to take on any specifics.
Thank you, Paul. Tony, did you want to come back, or Councillor Keir?
Yeah, as I said, it was constructive feedback. I think, when I've been involved in designing websites and stuff like that before, what you want to be able to do is wanted people to grab people's attention and click through. And I think when I look at just at the graphic that came out, it just. I think it can be improved, is what I'm saying. I like Let's Talk Monmouthshire. I think you're spot on, Paul. That branding is really good because it does encapsulate it. But for example, when you say the single place for consultation, I know you can't have something that's too wordy. I just feel that it could be better. But that's my view.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Keir. Councillor Davis.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question, if I may, about how this new platform interacts or interfaces with the more established My Monmouthshire app. I mean, of those 540 or so who have registered for this service, how many of those were existing My Monmouthshire app users? And are we doing anything to encourage, I suppose, that kind of cross-pollination between the more established registrations that we have for the My Monmouthshire app and to signpost them towards this new platform? I mean, I note, for example, I've just attempted to set up an account that I can't use my existing My Monmouthshire credentials. I have to create a new account from scratch. And I just wonder whether there's some learnings there that we can reflect on to make it even easier for the average Monmouthshire resident to seamlessly transition and to jump across from one platform to the next. That was my first question. And the second question pertained to the scope and the breadth of consultations that will be hosted on this platform. So will you, for example, envisage a situation where, for example, eventually planning applications could be hosted on this platform to, again, engage our local communities and our local residents and to encourage residents to respond to planning applications, for example? I can also imagine consultations of a national bent, where there may be a particular interest to Monmouthshire residents, particularly a national parks consultation, for example, which, again, unless you go squirreling through the My Monmouthshire app, you're unlikely to find. So having this one-stop shop platform could be a nice way of signposting some traffic towards some of those national consultations, and, as I say, some of those national parks consultations as well, which of course are of interest to many of our residents. So yes, so hopefully some thoughts and some questions there for consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Yeah, some really, really interesting and valid points there. I think the interface across all of our digital services is a key piece of work, and that's exactly the same in this space. So this system is separate to My Monmouthshire. They both run off two completely separate entities, so the synergy isn't there. But I suppose as reassurance for members, we're able to tap into, and we do on a weekly basis, to around about 15,500 residents issue latest news emails out to registered members of the public through the latest news function within the My Monmouthshire app. So that is signposting back to Let's Talk Monmouthshire, so updating residents on what consultations are taking place and encouraging that sign up. I think when we're looking at that that voice in and that reporting, I think both are equally as important. So I think as the digital space and some work around our digital strategy evolves, I think that synergy of cross-pollination of data and information is going to be essential to keep this area moving forward. In terms of the second point, I think the ability to host a range of consultations through this platform will only strengthen it. So I think the planning applications example, I think that's a really good example of where we need to explore as we move this forward. There'll be some statutory requirements naturally across services that we need to ensure that can be achieved through by doing it in this way. But I think if we're going to be true to that point around having a single place for residents to go, this needs to encapsulate as many of those opportunities as possible. And then I think the latter part, in terms of national consultations, it can be a signposting tool. So as we've got some more of those more national consultations taking part, even if they're not being hosted by us, the ability to signpost through the website, I think, is really important. But also not only that, if there's any direct consultations taking part, we've done a piece of work over the last 6 weeks with our youth service where a survey has been hosted through Let's Talk Monmouthshire, but it hasn't been front-facing to the public. It's been built through the system with a link in the background that our youth workers has been taken into schools. That's seen in, I think, 3,509 at the last count, young people saying what is important to them currently within the kind of next 12 months and what they want the youth service to focus on. So that's been all built through the system, but built in the background, so it's not open just to members of the public to take part in. So moving forward, I think that's potentially a piece of work that we can strengthen with our town and community councils as well, for some more of those localised consultations to be hosted direct to those members of the public where it's going to have the most impact.
Thank you, Paul. Was there anybody else that would like to make any contribution now? Councillor Buckler.
Thank you, Chair. Paul, funnily enough, I was doing exactly what Councillor Davis was doing, was registering as we were listening to you. And I'm afraid when I went to get my verification code, it wiped everything when I went back to carrying on my registering. So I'm still unregistered, but I'll pursue it. But do you think there's a danger that we'll confuse people? Where do they report problems? Where do they report things they want help with? I mean, how much, who's monitoring this and who's monitoring my Mon app? Are they connected in the teams? Because is there any way that things could fall through the cracks?
So firstly, apologies for any technical issues you might be having there. Feel free to reach out to myself if they continue after today's session, and the team will have a look at that. That's the first experience around verification we've had, but we can pick that up internally or with the external support that we've got if that continues. So feel free to reach out. I think secondly, I'm about 3 weeks, I think, into my current role of Head of Customer Communication Engagement. And I think as part of that role, it's a conscious decision to try and align that customer piece. So I've got responsibility for the contact centre as well, which is a valuable service in terms of residents reporting information in, as well as kind of how the My Monmouthshire app sits alongside that. So I think with the systems that we're now establishing, I think it's really important that that clarity is portrayed out to members of the public as well through a bit of a campaign in terms of where is the best place to go in terms of support. So this platform will be essential in terms of the voice in around communication, around consultation and engagement. My Monmouthshire app and contact centre will still be vital in terms of that level of support, as will our community hubs. So I think that joining and that sharing of information is really important. But I think in terms of the consultation piece and coming back to the concern around confusion, I think the confusion already exists with our residents in terms of how to engage in consultations with us, and this platform is aiming to try and resolve that confusion.
Thank you, Paul. Welcome, Councillor Watts. Do you want to make any contribution, or or does anybody else want to make a contribution before we conclude the debate on consultation?
No, Chair. Thank you. Sorry, I do apologise, but thank you for asking me if I'd like to make a contribution. I'll wait to see what other people's contributions are before I make my own. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're about to conclude the discussion on consultation. Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Angela, for your contributions, and thank you, members, for your part. And after the meeting, I'll be getting the QR code on my phone so I can speak to residents and prolong that bit that I might know what I'm talking about. Excellent, thank you. The next item on the agenda is let me just get it up, is to note the final independent remuneration panel for Wales report for 25-26, largely for noting. But John, did you want to make any comment on that, or bring any particular bit to anybody's attention? Thank you.
No, nothing really to add to it. It's just closing the loop off from the committee considering the draft report a couple of months ago. There's no changes to the report from the draft to the final, so it's as it stands and as the committee received it a few months ago. Really, it's just adding it to the agenda today so that everyone's aware of it, and closing that loop for the final report being published.
Thank you, John. Any comments from any member of the Democratic Services Committee or anybody else relating to that? If not, then we'll come to the final item on the agenda, which is to note the date of the next meeting as the 14th of July, 2025. So we look forward to seeing each other at that time, and thank you all for your contributions today, and also for your help and support during the course of the current year. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Diolch, Hwyl.
Hwyl na re.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.